Roadkill gave me back the beaten and battered Rally Duster, but we had to fix it up big time.
Welcome to my party, we're just getting started. A life is a dream or a nightmare scarring. Hand me a drink cause I think I'm going all in. Get me a shrink who can catch me when I'm falling. Cover up my scars, flip the handlebars, crashing in my car, wake up in a bar. I'll be a superstar, just on my avatar. This world is so bizarre, empty out the reservoir. Yeah, I'm taking 6 shots, yeah, straight to the face. And I wanna get lost, I'm sick of this place. Don't know how to stop when I'm feeling this way. So I'm taking 6 shots till I'm feeling okay. I think I'm going crazy, don't think I'll get home safe. So I'm taking 6 shots, all straight to the face. I'm taking 6 shots, are you coming with me? I'm taking 6 shots, yeah, straight to the face. And I wanna get lost, I'm sick of this place. Don't know how to stop when I'm feeling this way. So I'm taking 6 shots till I'm feeling okay. I think I'm going crazy, don't think I'll get home safe. So I'm taking 6 shots, all straight to the face. I'm taking 6 shots, are you coming with me?
Yeah, I broke it.
Jump in this thing and see what it'll do.
Ready to rock this, bro?
Oh, hell yeah.
Alright, before we get this thing home, I need to pressure wash this thing again now that the engine's out of it. This thing is filled. I mean, even look inside the bell housing. That bell housing has scooped some dirt up in that sucker. But we need to clean up all around the suspension, everywhere, because we're gonna end up having to replace a lot of the front suspension. We gotta pull the rear axle out. So while I'm underneath this thing, I don't want to be covered in just soot. So pressure wash time. Bolt won't hurt him, he just likes to chase him. It's a game he likes to play. The cat doesn't really like to play too much.
Oh, let's see.
Yeah. But back to business. This is the Roadkill Rally Duster. It's been in 2 episodes. David introduced you guys to this car. I'm the one that sold him this car. So when he introduced you guys, he was kind of lacking some details. So I'll go ahead and fill you in on what this car was. This car was a, let's just call it a hobby stock dirt track car. So this car was built, I don't even know when it was built, but judging by, you know, the water pipe thickness roll cage and how much this roll cage has crusticized and the stick welding awesomeness of this thing and the hand lettering, I'm gonna say this was probably turned into a dirt track car in the late 70s, early 80s. And I found this car in a, well, let's just call him a buddy, a guy I know. He had this sitting in his backyard. I paid 250 smackers for this thing, and I wanted it so bad because it's a cool old Mopar dirt track car. And then David hit me up one day. He's like, hey, we need a car for Roadkill. What you got? And I'm like, well, I had already found a better dirt track car. And so I was like, well, I don't really need this one. So I told David, I'm like, $500. And so I sold this car to Roadkill for $500. And that's when they came to my house and they filmed an actually, this has been 3 episodes. So the third one hasn't been released yet. I have no idea when it's getting released, but probably still another month from now. Or month from me talking. Anyways, so they showed up with that D100 episode that they were doing, that like 63, 65 Dodge D100. And they rolled up with that to buy a full 40 from me. And that's when David introduced Finnegan into the Rally Duster, which they just called it Dirt Track Duster at that time. And this thing was hideous looking. It didn't have this grill. It didn't have, well, these fenders are kind of damaged now, but I had to flare the crap out of these fenders so that way I could put my big awesome slots in it. And actually me and Derek and Walter, we made this car run and drive. We made that little dash for it. We did all the plumbing, the electrical. We had to get an engine for it because this thing had no engine in it. All the suspension and the brakes were completely clapped out. I mean, this thing's been sitting for 35 years plus. So we got this thing all running and driving in like, what was that, Derek? Like 9 days or something like that? Yeah, David called me. He's like, hey, we need that car for an episode. Can you have it ready by such and such date? And I'm like, doing the math in my head, you know, and I'm like, well, that's 9 days. He's like, can you do it? And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna need money though. So they sent me the money. I bought all the parts. End of story. We turned this thing into what it is. And then I added my little finishing touch right there. Junkerup birdsong. And they raced it on Roadkill. With they went to that rally school somewhere in Oklahoma. And they raced this against Finnegan's Camaro, which this thing would have dominated that if it just had a sure grip in it. To you Chevy guys, sure grip is a posi. So if it would have just had a sure grip in it, this thing would have dominated. But because it didn't, it got outrun. Not by a lot though. I mean, I think it was down to like 1/100 of a second. And then we just filmed an episode with this car Bajaing this sucker out in the desert of California City. And I beat the crap out of this thing trying to outrun the Roadkill vet cart. That didn't go too well for me. I broke it. So this axle is junk. It has finally exploded. That's a 7 1/4. If you notice, there is no engine in this thing. It's a big vacant hole. I had to give David back the engine. After that episode, they gave me the car back. They're like, here, you can have the car back. Which, in the episode, they said I had to outrun Finnegan to get the car. Well, I didn't outrun him, but I gave the car all it had. And, well, he told me, you can take the car, but you got to give me the motor back, because they needed the motor for another episode with the red Duster. So then they gave me, when I did the trade, I brought the engine to Dulce's farm, and I picked up this engine. Of course, this engine was complete. Derek tore it apart for me, and that's when we found out that this is not a 360 Magnum like I was promised. This is a 318 Magnum. So it still has the Magnum heads, but this is in fact a 318. And this thing is clapped out. This was a roller cam, and the roller cam was junk. I mean, this thing probably had 250,000 miles on it. Do I care? Nope. That's what I got. I didn't get screwed by Roadkill. Roadkill got screwed by a junkyard that sold him this motor, telling him what it was. And I'm just the unfortunate one that ended up with it and found out what it really was. Okay. Now, I've got some parts here. Since the cam in that thing was junk, I had this old 280H LA cam that Dulcich gave me for another motor I was going to do. But we're going to go ahead and slap that flat tappet cam into this hydraulic motor. Yep, I'm going to put the hydraulic rollers on that flat tappet cam. I did it when I was 16 years old, not knowing any better, and it worked. So we're gonna do that. And being that this cam's got some miles on it, those lobes don't have the taper that they used to. So it'll work long enough to beat the crap out of this car, because this car is going to Matt's. So that's muscle cars at the strip. And it's only, shoot, we're only like a week away from that, aren't we? So yeah, I gotta build an engine, replace the axle, put all new front suspension on it, because if you let me just show you this. Look at the feathering in these tires. See, that is how much these tires are feathered. Yeah, that's like probably 3/8 of an inch tall lip on the outside edge of that tread. Because Roadkill sabotaged me. They're like, you can have the car turnkey if you can outrun Finnegan. And I'm like, okay, I can do it. Hold on, the camera turned off. Can you see me yet? Screen turned off, so I couldn't tell what the heck I was aiming at. Anyways, so Roadkill sabotaged me, like I was saying. I said I could have the car turnkey if I was able to outrun Finnegan. Well, when I showed up, this thing was towed in over 2 inches. It was bad. I had to fix some of the tow just so I can get it on my trailer after the event, because it kept kicking the ramps off of my trailer when we were trying to tow it on. And I brought this thing home with my tunnel ram charger, Smurf. Yeah. So we got, and all the suspension on this car is clapped out. Dulcich beat the crap out of this thing. I beat the crap out of this thing. So, but we are going to put the slots on it. So we're going to take these tires off. We're going to put them on my slots. We're going to take those tires off, put them on my slots. Because, sorry David, but these black Steelies just are nowhere near as cool on this thing as it was with the slots. Isn't that right, Derek?
Yep.
The slots were way cooler. Okay. So not only did they sabotage me with it being towed in over 2 inches, they still didn't put a sure grip in it. So yeah, you got a 1 tire fire and it's towed in over 2 inches. Good luck. I lost. Okay. Oh yeah, and so this is the header. I've got to fix this. This is the header that Dulcich destroyed, and they just end up cutting the primary tubes. So I've got some other headers that we're going to try and like cobble together and make some kind of a complete header-ish type thing. And it's got a passenger seat in it, so I'm going to be taking people for rides at the Matt's event. Yep. So I'm getting this car ready for Matt's, and we're taking people for rides all day long around the autocross track, so they can ride in a real heap of junk roadkill car. Okay, that's a hell of an intro. That was a long one. That's probably the longest one I've ever done. But I had to catch you up on the Roadkill Rally Duster. This is now mine. We're gonna get it running and driving, and basically just let people have fun, including me. But it ain't gonna be going nowhere without no motor. So I think priority number 1, Derek, is I've got to put this motor together, because there's no point in even fixing the suspension. There's no point in even replacing the axle. There's no point in doing anything else unless this thing has a freaking motor. And we've got a bunch of parts and pieces here from when we tore this engine apart, including everything that's in there. Engine build, here we go. Ah, that feels good right there. I really don't care about this motor. We are just cleaning up and bolting together. All that rust in the cylinder wall, do not care. Slapping together, will it run? I don't want to spend any money on this thing. I got 6 spark plugs that aren't broken. So I only need to buy 2 more. So I got a busted bolt in the front of the timing cover, so I need to go ahead and weld a nut to the what's left of that bolt there and try and get this sucker out. don't know if that worked or not, because that was a lot of extension cord on that. It's moving. Ah, dang it. Round 2. All right, that's out. Off. Yeah, 280H comp cam, gonna be going in this roller motor. And this is, like I said before, a flat tappet cam. Now, you're not supposed to put hydraulic rollers on a flat... Intruder alert. Just like I was saying, you're not supposed to put rollers on a flat tappet cam. Flat tappet cams are designed for the flat base of the lifter to ride on the lobe, which it has more surface area. So the whole flat face of the lifter actually See, I can't do this one-handed. Let me try. All right. Yeah, so... All right, now you are not supposed to do this. This is not the way this is intended to work. You don't put a roller lifter on a flat tappet cam. The reason is there is actually a built-in taper at the top of the lobe that helps spin the lifter, so that way you can use up the whole surface area of the lifter. Because if it never spun, you would get grooves on the sides of the lifter. So this way it spins them and prolongs the life of the lifter. Problem with that, there ain't no taper on the bottom of that roller. So until one or the other gives out and flattens out, the roller on the lifter or the lobe, this is never going to sit perfectly flat. It's going to have a little, well, I'm exaggerate it. There you go. It's going to have a little bit of air gap between the roller wheel and the top of the lobe. Another reason I'm wanting to do this is because I don't want to spend any money on this motor, like none. This cam was free. The lifters still work, they're good. Now, this Magnum 360 is an oil-fed valve train. So the oil goes through the lifter, through the push rod, so that's, I don't know if you can see that or not, but there you go. There you go, there's light. That is a hollow lifter, so the oil travels through this. That's what feeds the rocker arms, the valve springs, everything. The LA motors are not oil fed. That's not hollow. It looks like it, but it's just a discoloration in the bottom of the push rod. See that? There's no oil going through that sucker. So that's why I am Mickey Mousing this motor, cobbling it together with junk I've got lying around, because I don't want to spend any money at all on this junkyard 318. Another reason not to do this, I'm gonna have to make a spacer that will keep the cam from walking, because this is a long nose snout cam, and when you tighten down the bolt, the cam can walk back and forth, because the cam is what, like a 1/4 inch longer than it needs to be. So making spacer, ghetto. My perfectly precision machined spacer. You know that's down to like 1/1000th of an inch accuracy. Some used motor oil out of the NASCAR. This oil was so clean it was a shame to throw it away, so it'll make good soaking lifter oil. Actually, you know what? We're gonna put all this oil in the motor. Oh, hey buddy. What are you doing up there? Kitty kitty. Man, used race car oil just smells so good. It just smells like 110. I like it. I like it a lot. Ugh, go in there. I've been sitting here for like an hour trying to figure this crap out. I need to increase the spring rate on this because these valve springs are weak. Like this thing wouldn't even rev to 4,500. And I don't care if this thing blows up. I want to buzz it to at least 6 grand. So tried big block retainers, springs, mix matching, trying to find washers to shim stuff, taking aluminum heads apart to see if I can take the springs retain Chevy heads, trying to take the spring retainers, just trying to find some conglomeration of something to increase spring rate. And not a whole lot of luck. But I think I have stumbled on to something. Not really a good thing, but here's my lack of ingeniousness. That is a rocker arm shim. It is a 1/4 inch thick. I'm gonna tack weld this to that spring, and then the retainer will go on top of that. So we're going to increase the spring rate by a 1/4 inch, which, being as this is only a 75-pound spring anyway, it's probably only going to bump it up to like 100, 105, which that'll work. I'll go with that. So I'm gonna throw it on here and see if it's even gonna coil bind. I think I figured this out. This is an old 340, what is this, X heads? Yeah, 340 X heads. So I bought a 340 last year to use my circle track car, and these are the heads that were on it. And I found that I pulled that one off, and there was a shim under the valve spring that actually fit those Magnum heads. So I'm hoping that all these valve springs have that same shim. If it does, we're golden. Haha. All right, we're golden. That's probably only like a 1/16 of an inch shim, but I tell you what, it'll work. That 1/4 inch shim that I was gonna try and like tack weld the valve springs, that was gonna go into coil bind. But the 1/16 inch shim, that'll give me a little bit more spring rate to where it'll hold up to hopefully the 480 lift on this cam. So, all right, we're gonna rip those apart and throw all these shims in these Magnum heads. Not a whole lot of progress was made yesterday. It started getting really shitty outside towards the end of the day, and there was a whole lot of cobbling together on this thing last night, or trying to figure out, robbing parts off of other cylinder heads, so trying to get the spring rate up. Anyways, got it long blocked, almost. We're missing one push rod and have no idea where it went. It might have gotten accidentally thrown away, I don't know. So I have a Chevy push rod here that's a little bit longer, and I think I'm just gonna cut the ball end off one side, cut the length out of it, and then TIG weld the ball end back on. So it's gonna be shorter doing that than it would be trying to find a push rod or going to the junkyard and robbing a push rod out of a motor. These little things that just add up time, man. My level of not caring about this motor. Cutting down Chevy push rods and shortening them to the correct length to replace the bent ones from the old motor. Flat tappet cam, hydraulic roller lifters, welding a car oil pan to a truck rail, robbing parts and pieces out of other cylinder heads to cobble this junk together. Zero craps given. Only the finest for the Roadkill Rally Duster. You really don't want to do that, but I really don't care about this engine, and for some reason my bolt is missing that for my balancer installer. So it got to the hammer. It's been a crappy day. It's been freaking windy and rainy. At least the rain is now gone. But I have been working on making this oil pan fit. I found this actually does have the right, I'm trying to think of the word for this. I'll just say the oil pan rail. This does have the correct oil pan rail. So it'll work kind of. I'll just have to use some extra silicone in some spots. But I'm having to take the truck pickup tube, and yeah, I'll probably just make an extension about yay like that, and then weld her all up. Derek is over here attempting to take the suspension apart, but he just needs to set his purse down and actually
I got it off, dude.
So not a lot of progress today, but it's going. It's just steady. There, fitted. All right, all about that square tube and volume flow. Literally the best part of this shitbox race mode is the distributor, and I don't even know if it works. That's one of those whole Mallory Unilite setups, and we've got our disfigured and mutilated cut driver's side header. This is the original header that was on the Rally Duster when I built it, but when Dulcich launched it off that little ditch there, you know, they destroyed the header, so they went ahead and cut the tubes. But look, that one is like almost kinked. I'd say it's about probably about 25% of what it was. So I think what I'm going to do here is I kind of mocked it up on the engine. I'm going to probably cut these here, and then I've got some other junk headers. Okay, I'll show you. So this is an old circle track header. I'll probably take this guy, cut some bends out of it, and use it to reconfigure. Oh, and it's got a collector on it. Yeah. So probably use most of that to rebuild that header on this car, because I'm not buying no freaking header. I already had those junk headers, so I'm mutilating. All right, I've got my fancy custom masking tape here that's going to give me my belt measurement and my routing. So I'm probably just going to go about an inch shorter than what that is right there. Probably I'll go like an inch to 2 inches shorter. I'll just return the ones that don't work. But this thing here is just about ready to go in. All I'm going to do is get a belt for it, put the thermostat housing on it. Oh, I need this nipple that goes here, the bypass nipple. And then that sucker's ready to go in. I'm going to go ahead and work on the suspension though. We didn't get very far with it. Right here, I'm going to rip all of this out kind of as one piece, because I have this to replace it with. This is all like really good stuff out of a donor car. So Dan's Driveline donated all this stuff to me out of a customer's car that went with all that tubular K-frame crap. This is way better. So the uppers already have new bushings in them. The lowers have good bushings on them. The calipers are good. It's got brake pads. We got front shocks. So look, we already got rotors and calipers and rotors and spindles. So all of that's just gonna get plopped onto the Rally Duster. Alright, hit a little bit of a snag, but nothing too crazy. I've been playing merry-go-round with these spindles and brakes, because this I initially had, if you saw in a time lapse, was on the front, and then I've got these brackets here that are to convert control arms from non-sway bars to sway bars. This car's got a sway bar on it. So knowing that, I'm like, crap. So I had to swap the caliper to the other side, which means I had to take the spindle from the other side, swap everything over, so that way I could put this guy right there, because that's what they do. You know, since you don't have the sway bar mount, you know, this just bolts where the shot goes, and then boom, you've got your sway bar mount. But then, see, I always work on B bodies. I'm never really working on A bodies. And so, also one thing I forgot is on 70s, the sway bar, 70 and newer, the sway bar is not mounted right here. It is actually mounted in the middle of the control arm, which is dumb because you lose efficiency of the sway bar. So, did all that swapping for no reason. Because on 70 and newer, brake caliper can be forward without hitting the sway bar, because this is now in the middle of the control arm instead of on the outer end. But, oh well. Technically, that's like 1/1000% more rear weight. So I'll take it. And all I'm gonna do with this is, instead of cutting off the mounts on the old control arms, I'm just gonna take this guy here, weld it to the middle of the control arm, and boom, sway bar complete. Now I gotta finish the other side. Here is my donor B-body rear axle. Yes, that's an A-body. This is a B-body. This is out of a Charger. It is, what, about 1.5 inches wider, I think? Yeah, it's about 1.5 inches wider, or close to that. But the reason I'm doing this is because the busted rear end that was in the Rally Duster is a 7¼ inch A-body rear end. The spider gears are blowing out of it. I blew that rear end up in the last episode of Roadkill. All right, the reason I can get away with running this is because I had wheel spacers on this guy. Because this is a 4-inch bolt pattern, so that means the wheels are a 4-inch bolt pattern. And to run the 4.5-inch bolt pattern wheels from a B body, I had to run adapters, which made the rear end 2 inches wider. So without the adapters, the B body rear end is only going to be a 1/2 inch. Well, it's going to be a 1/2 inch narrower than the axle that was in it. So, which means it's only 1/4 inch per side. And I had already done flared out the fender or the quarter panels. So this, in fact, is going to work perfect. The only difference is this hole to this hole is 1 inch wider. I was going to cut those spring perches off and weld them 1 inch farther in, but I'm getting lazy. What I'm instead going to do is just drill or oval out this hole here 1/2 inch per side to give me the 1 inch I need. Call it done, throw it back in, because this engine is going to make like a whopping 275 horsepower at the most, and I am not worried about it at all. It'll be fine. Okay. Now pin to pin is 1 inch shorter. Get her up. A little bit more. And on the pad, there you go. A little twist it. There. Time to plug this hole. Getting ready to drop our fully prepped racing engine right here, this Jalopy 318. But we've got to drop this transmission because there's two things. There's no motor mount on this side because the motor mount that I have for this thing doesn't exactly fit right. And this motor mount was on the other engine. But by looking at the outline of the motor mount, I can tell that this went like that. But that ain't gonna go on there. So I don't know if it's just a difference in the block, because this didn't go like that. I know that. It went like that. But I got to figure out what all I need to do to make that work. And I don't want to just go ahead and cut that ear off and make it fit, because it looks like they had modified this motor mount and shoved it forward or backwards. So I just need to set this engine in here and figure out where this motor mount needs to go. And then we can bolt the transmission to it. I gotta put the flywheel and the clutch on it. All kinds of crap has to happen to this motor before it can officially be bolted into the car.
Yeah.
So I just got the pilot bushing knocked in because this was an automatic 318. So the only thing is, I don't see any weights on this flywheel on the back side or the front, and you kind of have to rotate this thing to get all the bolt holes to line up. But it not being weighted makes me think this engine, ooh, this flywheel is heavy too. This makes me think this engine is going to rattle like hell. It not being balanced. Oh, there we go. All right. Let me just get one bolt in and get this thing started. All right. So now I got, since the bushing's in, get the flywheel on, the clutch on, we can get the bell housing on, and then I can go ahead and drop it in the engine bay so I can start figuring out my motor mount location. Okay, lock tight the rest and bolt them in. Flywheel, clutch, bell housing, starter, all on the engine. Engine's going up, keep going up. And now we can set it in. I just need to mock up that one motor mount to see how much I gotta modify it. Pull it back out, weld it up, and then it can go in, and I gotta make headers. That's good. Down, up, down. Go. All right, down. Up. Motor mount's cut and bolted back to the block. Now I can actually weld this ear back on, but it's pretty easy because I took a measurement. I knew that this stud needed to be 1.5 inches from the front of the ear. So all I'm gonna do is, this used to be in the middle of the ear of the block. I'm just gonna slide it over and weld it back on. I don't know why, but there must be a difference in the block from 360 to 318. That's the only thing I can think of, because this had a 318 in it before, and I remember I had to modify this motor mount to put the 360 in it. Now that I'm putting a 318 back in it, now I got to modify the motor mount again. Go figure. More. All right. Dude. Getting ready to put the throwout bearing on, which is, here's the new one, here's the old one, and you can tell there's a difference. Problem is, they're the same. This is a piece of the transmission. This is the input. So, or this is the shaft of the input that the throwout bearing rides on. Not a good thing. Are we gonna fix it? Nope. We're just gonna slide this in there and slide it on the transmission.
Oh, go back here in a sec.
Oh yeah, this piece of crap is almost ready. Drivetrain's in, we got the whole front suspension on, got the rear axle in, still got to do brakes, axle, shocks, and pretty much all the cooling, electrical, make some headers for it, but I've made progress. Well, it's the next day. Man, look at that fro I got going on. But Got a lot of stuff I need to get done today. Headers, drive shaft are the two biggest hurdles I've got. So putting an 8 3/4 in this thing versus the 7 1/4, you can see how much longer the drive shaft is. So luckily I have friends in high places, and Brick over at Dan's Driveline is going to take care of that for me today. So I'm going to pull that out, get the measurement he needs, and maybe today, if not tomorrow, I'll have a drive shaft in this car again, which means the next biggest hurdle would be the headers. So I got to go ahead and take care of that. What do you think, Bolt? You just want pettings and attention and play. That's all he does. Well, we got a lot to do today. All right, I got the rear axle at ride height right now so I can measure for my drive shaft. The back of the transmission to the 51 3/8. So now I can get my drive shaft. Oh yeah, look at my little drive shaft safety loop. This was actually on the car. So it's actually kind of ingenious because if we hit bumps, it retracts itself and then it fixes itself again. So the chain drive shaft safety loop. I just finished installing all the rear brakes. I still got to do the brake lines, but at least the brakes are on, the axles are greased, everything is siliconed up, and the drums are officially adjusted. So now we can put wheels on this thing. All right, so back up front, Derek's go ahead and finish installing the radiator and all the hoses. I need to pull the fitting off the back of this power steering pump so that way I can get a number 6 adapter to go to my steel braided line there. We got to button up some electrical, and because of this time crunch, I don't know if I'm really actually going to make a header. I think I'm just going to cobble the one that was in there back in there. So all tightened up?
All tightened up.
All right. Well, we can go run this drive shaft over to the driveline shop, and oh, we need to pick up the rear shocks. Yeah, we don't have any rear shocks on this thing yet. So, yep, there you go. See, rear shock delete. The rear shocks that were on this thing, what were they, junk? You said they were junk? Yeah, so the rear shocks that were on this thing were garbage anyway. So, $25 cheapy shocks from Napa Auto Parts. Here we come. Our cheapy $25 special shocks just showed up. Go ahead and throw those suckers in there, Derek.
Okay.
I'm gonna work on getting a coil, some plug wires, and headers on this thing. I think I've scrapped the idea of making a header for the left side because this is a time crunch and I don't have a lot of time, because not only do I have to get this car ready, I have to finish getting the General Lee ready, and I have to finish getting the NASCAR ready. So yeah, it's gonna stay roadkilled, and it's gonna get that crappy header shoved back in this thing. It's a pain in the ass to get the headers in these A-bodies, especially when they're already damaged and beat up. So got the engine up in the air, and that header will not go into the top or the bottom with the starter disconnected. So I'm gonna have to drop the drag link just to try and get this header in there. What the? Get. This is not normal. Voila! The header is in. I know this wasn't like this before. The header tube is into the power steering hose, and the rest of the tubes have hammer fit themselves to the steering box. The reason it did that is when you don't have off-road suspension and you take your Duster off-roading, the weight of the engine crushes the K-frame, pulling the engine into everything. So shimming we go.
All right, hurry up.
Derek hasn't figured out which side of the camera is forward and backward yet. Motor mount spacer. All right, the spacer worked. I got clearance between my header and the power steering hose and the header and the steering box. So that's more spedders. Normally I'm not this professional. Sometimes I half-ass things. Duster's alive! And everybody that's gonna go for a ride in this thing, you have a job. You're in charge of the fire extinguisher.
Roadkill cars. Right? That car is famous. It's been on TV. And now Chris is out here throwing it around on the autocross course. These things are amazing and they're created by 77 Designs.
Got it.
And if you
Huff and his cheater autocross beast here actually beat the Rally Duster. Look at this cheater car. What's this thing weigh, like 1,500 pounds?
28. 8.
You got plan A, plan B. Yeah. So if you're gonna build a jalopy car, you gotta build something that can beat this. But this didn't beat me by much. 1/10 of a second.
No, and I got to be a better driver after all of this. So being a better driver is not a bad thing.
Look, we got a ratchet strap motor mount.
And when I'm competing with somebody who drives and knows how to drive, I
Actually,
have
you know
to
what?
work
This
harder.
is cheating because when this stretches, that acts as like a traction control.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, Huff did an amazing job building that. That's actually a 71 CUDA. But all my buddies showed up. We had a great time.
tried to kick it down to
Like,
the other truck
The
drivers.
General Lee laid down an amazing lap time of a 45.9, which we did not think it would run that. But the biggest fun of everything was this NASCAR. This thing was incredibly fast and turned good, and the horsepower that this thing had was amazing. I just wish I had more video of it. Like I said, we spent so much time just having fun that we kind of like forgot to do video. Where's my hat? I had a hat around here somewhere. I don't know, it's around here somewhere. But if you notice, the Rally Duster is missing its trunk lid. That was the official trophy for the jalopy class. So it is missing. I gotta make a special note on you with this car, Gary. So I gave Gary this car last year. I gave you that car. Right? I gave you this car last year, right?
Yeah, last August.
Yeah, last August. Gary drove Smurf, but he wouldn't really beat on it that hard. So, and he's a good friend, so I told him, tell you what, I will give you a car if you have it ready for Matt's autocross. And he was here with it. He raced it. And actually, he ran a good time.
Yeah.
But then I smoked him in his own car.
Yeah.
No, but- so it's the, what is the official name of this car? You got like 3 names for it.
Sport.
Yes, we got that's the official name?
Yeah.
Okay. But this thing was like dragging rockers on the ground. The body roll was tremendous. And then we got, we got the cheater car. No, this is an amazing car. John Huff did a very good job building this car. The craftsmanship, it's made to look crappy, but it's actually really good. And then of course, the Rally Duster, which lost to this thing by only 1/10 of a second. But look at the meats on this thing, and then the meats on this thing. So, but it was a good run. And this thing had no balls, but I had a blast. And then Smurf ran a 46.0, which was amazing. Mike drove this to a 45.9, which is unbelievable. Oh yeah, we have another one show up. And this is your last year's reigning champion of the autocross, Vince. back again. And actually, Vince, you got third, right? Both days third? Well, the reigning champion came back to finish third both days. But I mean, you did a great job considering the competition that was here today.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And look, we gotta get compliment the bro stash. You explain that.
That's the Mo-stash.
The
It's
Mo-stash.
The Mopar M, and I had green on for St. Patrick's, Mopar blue yesterday, and then I'm crazy today.
Great job today.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then also gotta thank Daryl with the Porter mufflers. He's posing for pictures right now. You know, celebrity status.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But we all had an amazing time at the Matt's Autocross here in Las Vegas. So hopefully more guys like us that just want to have fun with junk cars on street tires show up and give John a run for his money. Actually, kick his ass.
He did. This guy could outdrive me, hands down. He could have a bigger piece of junk. But my kid stepped up the game and saved my whole gig.
So someone's got to dethrone Huff's. What is that thing? What was the name?
The Roach Cuda.
The Roach Cuda. That's what I was talking about. I couldn't remember what you called it. But that is real. This is a real 71 Cuda. See how his gills are professionally installed. See? There is a 1 in that digit. That is a real. How many people do that with a 71 Cuda? 1. All right. Well, I had a great time. I just wanted to get this picture here with all my friends. This, you know, we're making memories and having fun. Yes, it's competitive, but it's fun at the same time. So, thanks for watching, and hopefully this will encourage you guys to come out next year and run your junk.
Caldera is the red light this time. Caldera is 3 by 40,000.